Hey, what's up you guys? You're watching Team APS, Paul here again, and in today's video I thought I would talk about the hand trap problem because a lot of people have requested this and it's honestly an issue I've had in my mind for a really long time. So we're going to talk about hand traps, why they're so strong, why they kind of feel like a necessary evil, why they are a problem, and how we deal with it, because I think that the answer is not as simple as a lot of people might think. So at the end of the video, I want to know what you guys think of hand traps. Do you think they're a problem? How you think they need to be stopped after you hear my thoughts? And of course, remember, subscribe. I've got lots of videos like this if you enjoy them. So let's start with what hand traps are, at least the major ones. So hand traps, just at their core, are these monsters that you keep in your hand, and when your opponent activates a certain thing, or at any point in your opponent's turn, you can activate these hand traps and they just do different things. So they started with cards kind of like DD Crow, right? Where you could discard it from your hand and banish a card from the graveyard. Effect Veiler kind of popularized hand traps where, it could be discarded in your opponent's main phase and negate one of their monster's effects, which is pretty good. But the thing is now, hand traps have gotten much more powerful, much more influential in the game. Let's start with, kind of the elephant in the room. Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. You can discard her during either player's turn to negate any effect that adds cards from deck to the hand, sends cards from deck to the grave, or special summons monsters from the deck. That covers a load of bases. Ash Blossom can be used to negate so many different decks' starter cards, Rescue Rabbit or Tour Guide, for instance, Predaplants, that, anything that summons from the deck, negated. Any deck's Reinforcement of the Army type card, so let's say, Tinky, Hieratic Seal, Magical Meltdown, whatever, Ash Blossom can negate it. And of course, cards that send from the deck to the grave. That would be like Reasoning or Foolish Burial or That Grass Looks Greener, Ash Blossom can negate it. Ash Blossom is extremely strong. It can only be used once per turn, but clearly against some low tier decks, that's all it really needs. Like, once their one starter card gets negated, they basically can't play and have to end their turn. It might even be their whole strategy if it's not a very consistent deck. So Ash Blossom's a big problem. Now that she's out of the way, let's talk about the next one, Droll Lockbird. So Droll Lockbird, when your opponent adds a card from their deck to their hand, it could be drawing, it could be searching, just as long as it's not in their draw phase, you discard Droll Lockbird, and they can no longer add cards from their deck to their hand for the rest of the turn. Neither player can, but it's mostly just your opponent you're concerned about. So, this is extremely strong because so many decks nowadays search. It's considered a really strong out to Spirals, Pendulum Magicians. Like, for example, they have so many cards like Pendulum Call, Star Pendulum Graph, what's that other card? I forget. They've got things like Luster Pendulum, Duelist Alliance, and of course they then run like Upstarts and Pot of Desires. So after they've used any one of those cards, you can use Droll Lockbird, and for the rest of the turn, they can't do anything. And this can be really powerful, really oppressive, because like I said with Ash Blossom, some decks, when that play gets stopped, they just kind of have to end their turn. So that's Droll Lockbird real quick. Then we've got Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. It's actually been around for a while and didn't actually pick up play until maybe the last year or so. But basically when a face-up spell or trap uses its effect, or a monster that's already in the field uses its effect, you pitch Ghost Ogre and destroys that card. Doesn't actually negate the effect, although in some cases it's as good as negating the effect. You can use this against boss monsters to just deal with them easily from the hand. You can use this to deal with a lot of continuous spells and traps. For example, last format, this was really strong for stopping like Dragonic Diagram or Zodiac Combo. Currently, it's a way of getting rid of like Spiral Resort, for example. Some of the Pendulum Graph cards, things like that. So yeah, Ghost Ogre can stop all of that, any of their player's turn. Then we've got, Old Faithful Maxx C. You discard it, and then this turn, when your opponent special summons a monster, you get to draw. If they summon a bunch of monsters, you get a bunch of draws. It's limited, and for good reason, very strong card. So those are the major ones. And I'm not going to go over some of the others, but just to name them off, we've got like Ghost Reaper, which, gets rid of extra deck cards. We've got Psy-Frames, actually, which can negate other hand traps somewhat and dispels and things like that. And you've got some of the more side deck relegated cards, the DD Crows, the like Skullmeisters, that type of stuff. But why are hand traps so strong? I think it's really kind of like twofold, right? The fact that they activate from the hand means that they are very difficult to counterplay. Whereas trap cards, just regular trap cards, can be destroyed by something like Twin Twisters, MST, Cosmic Cyclone, whatever, and their liability. These cards aren't. You don't have to set them, you don't have to risk them being on the field. Your opponent doesn't get to know that they're in your hand. And the amount of cards that can actually stop hand traps is relatively low. I mean, yes, they're monster effects, so they can be like hit by Solemn Strike, for example, but that's not really something your opponent always wants to use Solemn Strike on, and not even necessarily something they always have the opportunity to use Solemn Strike on. Because it gets into the next reason, these are all quick effects. So outside of not having to be set, you can use these when your opponent goes first. Your opponent goes first, they're trying to set up, they're trying to make their plays, and you can use hand traps to disrupt them. And that's a really big deal because it means they can't have had a chance to set Solemn Strike, say Mind Crush or something, like if that was their out. They haven't really even had a chance to do any of that and protect themselves. So hand traps have just become this extremely powerful, free to play card that your opponent can't really stop. And I guess if I can add a third reason here, hand traps effects have over the years gotten a lot more oppressive. What started out with, like I said, things like Effect Veiler and all of that have kind of become just these extremely, almost omnipotent cards. We saw Ash Blossom can negate so many deck starter plays, and Ghost Ogre can deal with so many things instantly, just destroying a boss monster, destroying a field spell, whatever it is. Droll Lock effectively shuts out entire turns. For example, a deck I've been playing is Invokes True Draco. I enjoy it a lot. I use Alistair, I use the little spellbook draw engine, and of course I use like the True Draco cards. The thing is, if I activate Terraforming, for example, and it gets Droll Lockbirded, that's it, that's my turn. I can't use Diagram, I can't summon Alistair, I can't summon Spellbook Magician, I can't use either of the Spellbook draw cards, I can't use True Draco Heritage, or like the other one. I can't use Pot of Desires, I can't use anything. My turn's over, and for a deck that doesn't have very much defense, that's that. Now, I get it, these cards are really helpful for stopping the current top tier decks. Their Droll is very strong against Spirals, and it's very strong against Pendulum Magicians, and so is Ash Blossom, all that stuff. And that's good, it's great to have some kind of way to counter these strong decks. But the problem really comes in sort of because it's not fun to face these cards. You don't really get to see them coming. You, like I said, don't have really any counterplay to them. They end your turn in what feels like something that's completely out of your control, and that's not fun, right? Like, I mean, no one wants to start playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And then like someone pitches something from their hand at no cost, because these cards don't really have a cost, and as a quick effect, so they're fast. That's it, that's your turn, and it ends, and I've been watching so many of these YCS feature matches on the live streams where it's gotten to the point where a player tries to play, they get hand trapped, and they have to end their turn. The next player goes, they get hand trapped, and they have to end their turn. It's kind of like, this is really boring, it's not a whole lot of fun. But then there's the necessary evil part of it, where like I said, you have to have them to stop these powerful decks like Spirals or Pendulum Magicians, so that they can't make a crazy unbreakable board that you can't stop. Because you're going second, you wouldn't have had the chance to set any disruptive traps, or even use something like Book of Moon. So I mean, you can't really break up any plays. You have to have these hand traps to do anything. And as a further result of that, you see these decks that, like I mentioned in yesterday's video, are almost just like a small engine of monsters and then like 6, 8, 10, 12 hand traps in them. And this is like a real problem, I feel. And I mean, you could even say that like there are decks that are more hand traps than they are decks. I cited, like I said yesterday, Trick Stars, 7 or 8 monsters, 10 hand traps. There was like an Invoked deck that I got top 32 at YCS Dallas, 3 Alistairs, 12 hand traps. It's really problematic. It dilutes your deck because you're not going to really play your deck's strategies. You're just having to play these hand traps to survive. And that really sucks. I just don't think that's a lot of fun, and I totally understand where players are coming from when they say that they don't enjoy it. I don't blame them. I don't enjoy it either. I think hand traps need to be solved or tamed somehow. But like I said at the beginning of the video, this is easier said than done. A lot of people's first reaction would be ban these cards or limit these cards. So seems like an easy enough decision, right? We'll take the more powerful ones like Ash Blossom, Droll, maybe Ghost Ogre, and Maxx C, the 4 kind of highlight cards. A lot of people have said for a long time that Maxx C should get banned. I tend to agree. I think it's kind of overpowered. It feels very like, if you draw it and your opponent doesn't draw it, then it's very oppressive, and you'll usually win those games just because they're put in such a bad situation. So maybe Maxx C could get banned. But when it comes to things like Ash Blossom and Droll, if those cards got, say, banned or even limited, then what do we have to face the top tier decks with? Because as we know, top tier decks are extremely fast, extremely consistent. They have all these draw cards, they have all these search cards, they use all these combos to just summon from the deck and search. You guys have seen Spiral's turns. They last a while. It's good to feel like you have some kind of way of dealing with it instead of just having to watch your opponent basically, play with themselves in all the ways that implies, and then have to deal with a field of just like a bunch of link monsters and negations and Baguska and Firewall and all these things you can't stop. So if hand traps are gone, then what do we have to stop these decks? Then that just means going first is actually unstoppable. So will that solve the problem? It's like I'm hard pressed to feel like that's the solution. I wish that these cards could get an errata, but I don't think that's really gonna happen. I mean, erratas are for very niche cases, and I think that Konami was well aware of what they were doing when they designed Ash Blossom. I mean, it clearly, hits the things it's meant to hit. It's not like a typo type of broken thing. But what do? Maybe, there needs to be counterplay instead. Should there be like hand traps that negate hand traps or something like that? I mean, that kind of exists in a way right now with Psy frames where, you can use, I don't remember which one it is that negates monster effects. I want to say it's Gamma, but I can't be 100%. Either way though, it'll be on the screen. You can use Psy frames to actually stop things like Ash Blossom. That's really cool. But those are also hand traps, and running them also means diluting your deck. And funny enough, Ash Blossom can actually stop Psy frame effects as well because they summon from the deck, and also Ash Blossom can stop Maxx C. I hate that card. Anyway, the point is that it's hard to actually find a way to stop hand traps. You want to say that, cards like maybe Debunk could be useful, but that's a trap. You have to set it first. It's not really worth it. Mind Crush, that's a trap. You have to set it first. It's not really worth it. What is it? Mind Drain, that should be a floodgate against hand traps, but that's a trap. You have to go first or else you won't be able to set it. So what do? It's so hard to say. Like, should the hand traps all go, then let the game get out of control and you just get completely steamrolled? Or should the hand traps stay? I mean, I don't know what it is. I think that at best, the hand traps maybe should be getting limited, and then the decks themselves also need to be tamed. Because I mean, if the hand traps go, I would still like to see a game where you get more than like a turn or two to play. So it's a really tough problem to answer. And I'm not saying I have the answer. In fact, that's what I'm asking you. What should be the real solution to these hand traps? I mean, do you really think an errata is gonna happen? Because I don't. Do you think that they should just all get like limited, for example? Or would that make them not worth running? Or would that be the perfect answer? If they get limited, should other decks get nerfed? Is it not really even a problem at all? I don't know. But like I said, I think it's a really good conversation topic to have. So I do want to know what you guys think about hand traps, how you feel they are they healthy, are they not, what should be done? So I think I've gone on long enough. That's it for the discussion. I would love to know what you guys think, so leave it in the comments. And remember, you can follow me. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, all that good stuff. You can check out TCG Player, the sponsor. Be sure to subscribe if you like the video. We've got more cool discussions like this coming and other more interesting things too. So yeah, more details on all that later. It's gonna be it. I'll see you guys in the next video.